You'd never think a few typed words on an official form could strip a man of his identity, yet that's precisely what some say Meghan Markle managed to do to Prince Harry. In a twist that blindsided even their most loyal supporters, Harry's proper name vanished right off his daughter's birth certificate, and the shockwaves were far bigger than anyone could have imagined. When baby Lilibet Diana arrived, everyone expected the usual royal protocol: a polished announcement, a carefully curated photo op, and a government record that clearly listed the proud parents. But hidden within those details was something so peculiar it sent shock rippling from London to Los Angeles. Rather than listing Harry's actual name, Henry Charles Albert David, the document bizarrely recorded the Duke of Sussex as the first name and His Royal Highness as the surname. Just think about that for a second. Picture presenting that certificate at a government office, only to be met with a puzzled clerk asking, "I'm sorry, but where's your real name?" To outsiders, it looked almost laughable. But for those familiar with royal etiquette and the legal weight of such records, it felt intentional. This wasn't a typo from a weary administrator. It had all the hallmarks of a quiet maneuver, one that could tip the scales of authority over the children. That's when the uncomfortable questions began to surface. Was this really just an innocent mix-up, or was it a calculated first move in a bigger power play? While newspapers and commentators debated whether Harry and Meghan were even allowed to name their child after the Queen's childhood nickname, a far more serious issue simmered in the background. Titles might be ceremonial fluff, but birth certificates are the backbone of legal identity. They unlock passports, determine parental rights, and even impact claims to inheritance. Omitting Harry's full name didn't just look odd, it could have profound consequences. Behind palace doors and across social media, speculation erupted that Meghan knew exactly what she was doing. After all, this wasn't her first time making edits to her children's official records. Not long after Archie was born, she quietly removed her own first and middle names from his UK birth certificate, replacing Rachel Meghan with simply Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. That alone set off a media firestorm. So when Lilibet's California birth certificate arrived missing Harry's legal name, many wondered if it was another deliberate step rather than a clerical blunder. Ask those who follow royal affairs closely, and they'll tell you this was no accident. It was a clever legal tactic. Under U.S. law, a birth certificate lacking a clear, verifiable name can create all kinds of complications. It can delay travel documents, trigger bureaucratic red flags, and in any dispute, favor the parent whose identity is fully documented. And it didn't take long for that to become a reality. When the Sussexes tried to secure British passports for both of their children, they hit a bureaucratic brick wall. What should have been a standard process turned into half a year of unexplained setbacks. Government departments blamed. Technical difficulties. Applications were stalled with no timeline. For Harry, it felt like an orchestrated effort to block his children from being legally recognized as part of the royal lineage. He was enraged, angrier than he had been in years. Sources close to the couple claim that Harry eventually threatened to demand every email and internal memo related to the delays. He wanted hard evidence that someone in authority was deliberately dragging their feet. He was so frustrated that he floated the idea of using his mother's maiden name, Spencer, instead of Mountbatten Windsor on official papers. Imagine that. A man born third in line to the throne, ready to abandon the Windsor legacy altogether. It wasn't just idle talk either. Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, was reportedly in full support. He'd never hidden his resentment for the monarchy that had brought so much turmoil into Diana's life. For Harry, assuming the Spencer name would have been the ultimate tribute to his mother, and a final rejection of the institution that had caused so much pain. But even as Harry contemplated such a drastic step, he knew it would come at a steep price. Adopting the Spencer surname would all but guarantee a permanent rupture with King Charles. It would carve an unbridgeable divide into the family tree his children would inherit. Meanwhile, Meghan remained conspicuously silent. She never explained why Harry's real name had been left off, nor did she confirm whether she'd personally signed the paperwork. That silence only fueled suspicions. Some were convinced she was quietly shoring up her position, ensuring that if any legal battle over custody or decision-making ever emerged, she'd hold the stronger hand. And here's the part no one likes to say out loud. There's an old British law that grants the monarch partial custody rights over royal grandchildren. If Charles ever chose to invoke that precedent, a properly documented birth certificate would be essential. A document missing the father's legal name muddies everything. That's why those 5 missing words mattered so much. Eventually, after months of tense correspondence and legal threats, the passports were finally approved. But by then, the damage had been done. Trust was fractured, and Harry was left wondering how he, of all people, had ended up fighting so hard just to have his own name recognized in his daughter's records. But even that resolution didn't close the chapter. Experts point out that correcting a missing parent name isn't as simple as filing a new form. It requires officially re-registering the birth, submitting additional evidence, and acknowledging that the original record was flawed. If Harry and Meghan quietly fixed the issue later, they never said so publicly. If they didn't, Lilibet's certificate still carries that unusual omission. And that leaves a question that still hangs in the air. Was this simply administrative chaos, or part of a broader strategy? Some argue Meghan has always prioritized control over her brand, her children, and her future. Others believe she was simply trying to protect her kids from the same suffocating royal expectations that nearly broke Diana. But regardless of intent, the outcome was the same. Harry's role was reduced to a ceremonial label, and he was left fighting to prove his place in his own family. And this isn't just about optics. The reality is that passports, travel permissions, and even emergency custody arrangements rely on what those records say. If Harry ever wanted to take the children abroad without Meghan's consent, he'd be legally blocked. No matter his title, he would still need her signature. That's a sobering thought. To the world, Harry remains the Duke of Sussex, the face of a modern, independent royal. But when it comes to the paperwork that actually governs his rights as a father, he's increasingly marginalized. Meghan, on the other hand, holds the crucial details, the names, the documents, the leverage. And she doesn't appear to be giving up that power anytime soon. Observers have described this as a slow, methodical legal game, one Meghan is playing with impressive discipline. Every overlooked name, every delayed application, every carefully chosen label strengthens her position. And Harry, for all the weight of his ancestry, is struggling to keep up. Look beyond the glossy headlines about Netflix deals and best-selling memoirs, and you find a quieter, more painful story. 2 people locked in a contest over identity and control, with their children at the center. A conflict so intimate that it almost doesn't matter who's watching. And here's the most unsettling possibility. If a single birth certificate can be altered without public outrage, what else could be revised in the years ahead? What other official records could be adjusted until Harry's name fades entirely into the background? Now that the dust is settled, one truth is impossible to ignore. For all the glamour of their new life, Harry has never looked more unmoored. The man who once swore to honor his mother's legacy now finds himself fighting to keep his own identity intact. Whether you see Meghan as a brilliant strategist or a fiercely protective mother, the result speaks for itself. Harry's name, the one he was born with, came dangerously close to being erased. It's a reminder that titles and heritage don't matter nearly as much as a single line of text on a form. And no matter how famous you are, the fight to remain visible in your children's lives can be the fiercest battle of all. Because when an official document can be weaponized, no relationship, royal or otherwise, is safe from being rewritten. And that's why Harry's anger ran deeper than a single argument or a delayed passport. It was the dawning realization that no amount of privilege could protect him from the simplest, most humiliating truth: being reduced to a title by the person he trusted most with his legacy. But even with the paperwork issues momentarily resolved, the questions refused to die down. Every time Harry appeared in public holding his children, commentators whispered about how quickly a signature or a choice of wording could tilt the balance of power. It wasn't the grand gestures that defined the struggle, it was the silent, unseen details hidden in official forms and legal language. Those details, more than any speech or interview, determined who truly held control. What's even more striking is how this quiet, bureaucratic battle mirrored the couple's entire departure from royal life. When Harry and Meghan stepped back, they promised a simpler existence, one free from the constraints of tradition and the constant glare of public scrutiny. Yet the more they tried to distance themselves from Buckingham Palace, the more entangled they became in the very institutions they claimed to reject. Every form they signed, and every record they amended pulled them back into the same web of rules and expectations. And while Harry grappled with his frustration, Meghan's approach was almost clinical. She rarely commented on the controversy, rarely acknowledged the suspicion that followed them. To some, her silence was a sign of guilt, a quiet admission that she knew precisely how her decisions would be interpreted. To others, it looked like confidence, the composure of someone who believed she was acting in her children's best interests, no matter the optics. But for Harry, the consequences went far beyond public perception. Each time he had to fight for recognition on a form or correct an omission, it chipped away at his sense of stability. For a man who had spent his life defined by duty, service, and legacy, the realization that even his name could be sidelined must have felt like the ultimate humiliation. There's also the undeniable irony that Harry had once accused the royal family of controlling every aspect of his existence. Yet in this new life he helped build, he was discovering that power can be just as absolute and just as suffocating when it's held by someone you love. He was no longer answering to a palace bureaucracy, but he was still answering to someone. And in that way, he traded one hierarchy for another. Even now, with the birth certificate saga mostly faded from the headlines, it remains a potent symbol. It represents how quickly history can be revised, how easily identities can be reshaped when no one is paying attention. And it serves as a cautionary tale for anyone who believes that leaving an institution means escaping its legacy. Because as Harry learned, some battles follow you wherever you go. In the end, the most unsettling part of all this isn't the controversy itself. It's how ordinary it became. How quickly the idea of erasing a name from a birth certificate stopped sounding like a scandal and started to feel like just another chapter in a royal soap opera. But behind the spectacle, a man who once carried the hopes of a nation was left fighting the smallest, most human battle of all, to be seen as more than a title in his own children's lives.